Good morning, good day, and good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all races, ages, genders, sexual orientations, religions, etc. Black History Month may be over, but that does not mean the end of recognizing black figures that have made an impact on the world, whether the person is real or fictional. In the case of today's person of interest, it is one of the fictional variety from Marvel Comics. This character is one that has been featured heavily in comics, obviously, TV shows, and cinema. In fact, this character in film is often credited for helping Marvel pave the way for the Marvel films we know and love today. You may have figured it out by now, but for those who may not know, the character I'm referring to is the one known as Blade. One may say to his or herself, I know about Blade. The movies have taught me everything I need to know. What more is there to learn about the character? Well, Blade made his first appearance in The Tomb of Dracula No. 10 in June 1973. Born Eric Cross Brooks, Blade was born in Soho, London on the 24th of October, 1929. His father, Lucas Cross, was a member of the secret society known as the Order of Tirana. He sent his wife, Tara, who was pregnant with Blade at the time, to England before he was taken prisoner in Latveria. She took on the name Vanessa Brooks to hide her secret identity from Lucas's enemies. Tara would find shelter with brothel owner Madame Vanity, another member of the Order of Tirana. After experiencing labor complications, Tara was forced to seek a doctor's assistance. She would unfortunately be under the supervision of Deacon Frost, a scientist looking for the key to immortality turned vampire. Seeing an opportunity to feast on a vulnerable person, Frost drank Tara's blood as she gave birth. Though this led to her demise, Frost would unknowingly pass on a series of enzymes that altered Tara's child. The enzymes entered the baby's bloodstream, transforming it into a being tainted by a vampire's bite. Because the child was still in the womb, it would not turn completely into a vampire, thus resulting in a human-vampire hybrid, also known as a Dampier. The deceased Tara would give birth to her son, Eric, though he would bear the pseudonym Brooks. With the death of his mother and absent father, the young Eric would be raised at Madame Vanity's brothel. On a December evening when Brooks was 9 years old, he was returning home from school. He would stumble upon 3 vampires attacking an elderly man. Being the young hero he was, Brooks helped the old man, and their combined might led to the vampires being killed. Amazed at the young man's bravery and resourcefulness, the old man would learn of Brooks' past and decide to take him under his wing. Why would a random stranger do this? Well, it just so happened that the old man, named Jamal Afari, was a vampire hunter. Knowing his potential and the dangers of vampires to the world, Afari would become Brooks' foster father. Afari would move into Madame Vanity's brothel where Eric lived and became a father figure to him. He taught Brooks everything he knew about hunting, fighting, and identifying vampires. Brooks would be motivated to avenge his mother's death in his hunt for vampires as he grew into his teenage years. Having become proficient in the use of edged tools in his killing of vampires over firearms, Brooks would take on the name Blade. The partnership between Blade and Afari would come to an end when Afari willingly took the fall for murder when Blade killed a man he thought was a vampire. The man was actually suffering from a form of derangement. Blade would become part of the war effort during the Second World War, at the young age of 14. He joined a team known as the Secret Invaders, a group of individuals who specialized in combating against invaders of mystical and occult threats. While on a mission to the Irish Sea, the team intercepted and destroyed U-666, a Nazi U-boat that was possessed by the demon Mephisto. Blade would go on solo adventures after the conclusion of the war. He operated alone across Europe, Asia, and North America. His biggest target was the vampire lord Dracula, as Blade believed Dracula to be the ultimate evil that needed to be exterminated sooner rather than later. Though he stalked Dracula through multiple countries, he was never able to permanently eliminate him. During his adventures, he would meet vampire detective Hannibal King and took down his doppelganger created by Deacon Frost himself. In 1968, Blade would find a group of like-minded individuals led by Orgy Jones. Jones's team of vampire hunters consisted of Mucinda, Oregon Strong, and Azu Mdaman. The group would take Blade in, with Jones being a mentor and trainer to Blade, further sharpening his skills. No pun intended. The group would later decide to hunt down Dracula. They used an elaborate ruse to lure Dracula into a fatal trap, which involved Blade initially confronting Dracula alone, as bait. Blade provided Dracula with a plan to help vampires conquer the earth, which enticed Dracula. With his guard down, Dracula asked to meet the others. Blade would lure Dracula to the group of vampire hunters, only to discover that it was a trap. The group would assault Dracula and end his life once and for all. Or so they thought. Dracula would be resurrected by his servant, Kuai Hua, and her handmaidens. He would later kill 3 of the 5 members, leaving only Blade and Mucinda alive. As if Dracula's torment of Blade wasn't enough, he would transform Blade's former mentor, Jamal Afari, into a vampire as an act of revenge against Blade. After years of being separated, Blade found his mentor in London. Afari, now a vampire, initially warned Blade to stay away, but lost control of his bloodlust and attacked Blade. Though reluctant to do so, Blade was forced to kill Afari and end his suffering as a vampire. Following his encounter with Dracula, Blade would investigate the death of a bat-like creature. While looking for the body in the morgue, he would discover Kalu, a powerful magician of dark magic, also investigating the body. The two would clash briefly before being interrupted by Detective James Lucas, father of Carl Lucas, aka Luke Cage, reporter Constance Molina, and a semi-retired superhero turned physics professor, Adam Brashear, aka Blue Marvel. While attempting to piece together the details of the death of the creature, the Bear revealed herself to be the killer, having the goal to prevent a group known as the Deathwalkers from using it as a sacrifice to end humanity. The present people would band together to form the Mighty Avengers. They would confront the Deathwalkers, who were attempting to make another sacrifice. The team would defeat the Deathwalkers and disband shortly after. Blade formed a detective agency named Borderline Investigative Services that specialized in supernatural cases. The agency consisted of Hannibal King and Frank Drake, acquaintances from Blade's earlier adventures. Though the group disbanded temporarily, they were formed back together thanks to the help of Doctor Strange to reform and rename the group as the Night Stalkers. Later into Blade's crime and supernatural fighting adventures, he would encounter Lilith, the mother of all demons. She requested the Night Stalkers to attack the Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze. They would later discover her trickery and plan a counterattack. They would join forces with other supernatural heroes like Doctor Strange, Morbius the Living Vampire, ironically and begrudgingly, and the Darkhold Redeemers, known as the Mystic Nine. which would later be known as the Midnight Suns. In a battle with Lilith and her minions, the team would emerge victorious. While operating in New York, Blade would encounter Spider-Man, though it was through an uneasy alliance. They would come into conflict with Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, and battle his henchmen, who were protecting a chained trunk. Spider-Man, being the inquisitive individual he is, wanted to know what was in the trunk, since Blade refused to tell him earlier. Once the trunk was opened, it was revealed to have contained a weakened, feral, and bloodthirsty Morbius, who was also under the mental control of a powerful vampire known as Hunger. With Spider-Man trying to stop Blade from killing Morbius, and Morbius, now free from the trunk, attempting to harm Kingpin, Morbius would bite Blade. As with traditional vampires, if a person is bitten by one, they too will not only turn into a vampire and gain their abilities, but also have an insatiable thirst for blood. This wasn't the case for Blade. Because Blade already had vampire enzymes in his blood, thanks to Deacon Frost, he was also immune to the bites of supernatural vampires, including the likes of Dracula. Because Morbius was a pseudo-vampire, his bite mixed with Blade's own unique blood. Instead of turning him into an undead vampire, the bite awakened his dormant vampire side, granting him supernatural physical powers, while allowing him to keep his human soul and immunity to sunlight. Though he's driven by his desire for blood, he's able to contain his hunger with a serum. Blade would go on many adventures following his permanent transformation, including battling a new form of vampires called the Tricks, and meeting the Punisher. Following a battle with a vampiric Spider-Man, which had Blade shooting him in both kneecaps to incapacitate him, Blade would encounter Dracula again and put a stake through his heart, killing him once and for all. He would encounter Dr. Doom in Latveria as he was sent on a mission to travel to the past to save his mother as she was being targeted by vampires. This was something Doom witnessed from his mother's womb. Following the mission, Blade would return to Dr. Doom, who presented Blade with the Elixir, a cure for his thirst for blood. Blade also was able to free his imprisoned father, Lucas Cross. Later in the series, Cross would kidnap his son in order to fulfill a prophecy that Cross claimed that vampires could reclaim their lost souls, effectively making them alive again and removing their traditional weaknesses. This prophecy also involved Dracula making his presence remembered to the world. To do this, he starved Blade from his thirst of blood and gave him a virgin girl to feast. Cross would later reveal himself to be Blade's father, through obvious suspicion and distrust from his son. Instead of feeding on the victim, Blade would shoot through his hand, punch his father unconscious, and escape captivity. He would then fight his way out of the building and save the girl he was meant to kill. Blade would return to London, seeking answers on the validity of his father's mentioning of the prophecy. While there, he would kill vampires, while also encountering a rare vampire named Draconis. His rarity is due to his immunity to the usual weaknesses of vampires, including a stake through the heart, that he built up over decades since Blade's previous presence in London. Though Draconis would defeat Blade, he would not be out for long. With the help of Hannibal King, Blade was able to kill Draconis, but not without drinking his vampire blood first. Little did he know, Draconis was the virgin that the prophecy needed to get closer to being fulfilled. Blade would visit and dig up his mother's grave and learned more about the Order of Tirana. He would return to America to look for his father at a social club party in Washington, D.C. He will find him and discover that Cross is a vampire, With Blade distracting his father, King was able to obtain a copy of the prophecy from Cross's computer. Blade and King devised a plan to stop the prophecy and the return of Dracula. This plan involved the assistance of Spider-Man. It was revealed how Spider-Man became a vampire before his battle with Blade. A man in a cloak was assisting Dracula with evil deeds. Spider-Man revealed he heard Dracula mention the cloaked man by name, the name being Jamal Afari. Blade would spend the next 3 weeks searching for Afari to no avail. Cross would appear in Blade's apartment to offer him some assistance on locating Afari. They, along with Hannibal King, would travel to Dracula's castle. Cross would attempt to persuade Blade into giving all vampires back their souls. Blade was not interested in potentially making vampires invulnerable by returning their souls and refused. With this refusal, Cross revealed he was holding Afari hostage and threatened to put a stake through his heart if Blade did not cooperate. With Blade standing fast on his decision, King, who wanted his soul back, turned against Blade and the two fought. Blade would kill King, someone Blade considered to be his only friend. Dracula will return and impale Blade. Cross will confront Dracula as he did not want his son to be harmed. Dracula will continue his attempt to persuade Blade into continuing the prophecy, but he refused. When Blade attempted to confront Dracula over the assault of Jamal, Blade bumped into Cross, who was holding a sliver of a wooden stake. This piece of stake was one used to kill Dracula in the past. The stake hit the ground, which completed the prophecy. Cross noticed nothing different with the completion of the prophecy, but one thing was real, with the return of Hannibal King from the dead. Following a short pause of realization, it was revealed that the prophecy did not return vampires' lost souls to them. Instead, it brought back every dead vampire back to undead life. Because Cross was a huge part of the return of the formerly dead vampires, he felt guilt and was allowed to live with the consequences of his actions. Blade and King would rekindle their friendship, with Blade giving his elixir potion he got from Dr. Doom to King so that King could live life without bloodlust. Blade would go on many adventures following his confrontation with his father and Dracula, including teaming up with the X-Men and being a part of a group known as Vanguard and MI-13, who gave Blade a new cybernetic hand. After a battle with Thanos and his minions on Earth, Blade wanted to keep a low profile from the supernatural community and his various vampiric enemies while operating in the public eye. While initially wearing the Spider-Man outfit, he transitioned into the Ronin attire. He would also rejoin the Mighty Avengers, which was different from the one he initially joined back in the 1970s. This team name came from the hashtag used in social networks. The returning Deathwalkers would discover Blade's identity as Ronin and capture him to be a sacrifice for them. Though the Mighty Avengers came in to save him, the Deathwalkers were able to take his blood hours prior to their arrival, leading to the creation of Deathwalker Prime. With the powerful creature in front of them, the Mighty Avengers conducted a similar ritual to combine their mights to form Avenger Prime. The merged Avengers were able to defeat Deathwalker Prime and save Blade from his capture. Blade would go on numerous adventures, including a mission with the Avengers, encountering the primordial Eldritch god, Adana, being confronted by Doctor Strange about his actions in Japan, seeking assistance from Dracula himself to defeat Adana, and eventually defeating Adana with some assistance. In his most recent adventure, Blade would come under possession of Varney, an old enemy and ancient vampire lord from Atlantis. Varney, being the first vampire to gain full control of Blade, went to meet some vampire hunters whom Blade had personally taught. With no suspicion, Varney, acting as Blade, caught them by surprise and managed to slaughter them all. Varney would kickstart a vampire invasion. He would take down members of the Avengers, including Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Doctor Strange. He would even take on the newly reformed Midnight Suns Ghost Rider duo, Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch. Though Varney had full possession, Blade would fight from within to regain possession of his body, but failed. Varney would gain godhood when he imbued himself with the power of the Dark Force. He would be confronted by the Avengers, including Moon Knight and Spider-Man, Miles Morales. An intense battle would ensue. With the help of the combined might of Doctor Doom becoming the Sorcerer Supreme and the Scarlet Witch, Varney would eventually be exorcised from Blade. The real Blade, having suffered heavy injuries, was back to normal. He would fully recover and find solace in a Buddhist temple in Thailand. As of the recording of this video, Blade has been on a quest of self-imposed exile and rebuilding. This wouldn't come easy as he faced off against the Roman-born cult leader and vampire, Pontius Van Helsing. Blade has been shown in multiple forms of media since his debut to the world in the 1970s. Most famously was his live-action appearance played by Wesley Snipes in the 1998 film Blade. With the success of the film, not only were 2 sequels made, but the film helped launch Marvel into the global super industry that it is today. Snipes will also return in the 2024 film Deadpool and Wolverine. While Mahershala Ali has been casted to play the MCU version of Blade, despite him already appearing in the MCU as Cornell Stokes, aka Cottonmouth.
My name is not Cottonmouth!
The movie has faced several delays, including creative changes and casting exits. As of the recording of this video, the movie is indefinitely delayed. Blade has been shown to be a powerful anti-hero, thanks in huge part to Deacon Frost. With his Dampier physiology, it has made him immune to normal vampire bites, uniquely attuned him to sensing the supernatural, and resistant to aging. The bite he received from Morbius further enhanced his abilities by granting him superhuman senses, including smell, taste, and the ability to sense magic. Superhuman strength, able to lift up to 1 ton. Superhuman speed. While not on the same level as an undead vampire, he is still able to move faster than the eye can see. Superhuman durability. To an extent, can withstand damage far greater than a normal human being. And regeneration. As with all vampires, he possesses a regenerative healing ability from minor to moderate injuries. Thanks to his consumption of Dracula's blood during his encounter with Adana, Blade would further gain the ability to shapeshift as well as increase his already heightened senses and physical attributes. As if he didn't sound like a dangerous man already, Blade is also a master martial artist, having mastered numerous forms of unarmed combat, including Krav Maga, boxing, Hapkido, and Kung Fu. As far as armed combat, while Blade is a skilled marksman with throwing weapons and shooting various firearms, his preference lies in his name, a bladed weapon. This is his preference primarily due to him being trained with the weapon by his mentor, Jamal Afari. It remains a core identity to his character. thank you for watching this video. Blade has always been that one Marvel character I wanted to know more about. My knowledge on Blade has been very limited, as I only knew about him thanks to my time playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance and even Spider-Man Friend or Foe. Researching his long history gave me a better insight on who he is and why he was such a popular character even after the movies released. Hopefully we get a chance to see more of Blade in the future in the MCU and even in the teased video game that we'll be getting sometime in the future. Fingers crossed that doesn't get indefinitely delayed too. Other than that, I thank you for watching, take care of yourselves, make good decisions, and have a wonderful rest of your day.